Hello everyone, my name is Ferdinand Syifa with ID number 24202048 and I am a third semester student of the English Education Department in UIN Syekh Wasil, Kediri. In this video presentation, I will discuss my midterm project for the Cross-Cultural Understanding course. The topic that I will explain today is directness versus indirectness in Eastern and Western cultures, supported by relevant cultural concepts and holds high context and low context theory. Before going into the main discussion, let me begin with a brief explanation of what culture is and why it matters. So let's move to the next slide. What is culture? To start with, culture can be defined as a learned and shared system of values, beliefs, norms, and practices that shape how people think, behave, communicate, and interpret reality. It covers various aspects such as language, rituals, customs, communication patterns, and social norms. Moreover, culture is learned, meaning we acquire it through interaction with family and society. It is also shared, dynamic, and transmitted from generation to generation, which makes it an essential part of human life. Now let's move to the next slide. The next material is characteristics of culture. To understand culture more deeply, there are several key characteristics to highlight. First, culture is learned and shared, shaped through socialization. Second, culture is integrated as dynamic, meaning its components influence each other and change over time. Third, culture guides behavior and gives meaning, helping people determine what is polite, appropriate, or respectful in a given context. These characteristics provide the foundation for understanding why different cultures communicate differently. Next is elements of culture. In addition to those characteristics, culture also consists of important elements. These include language and nonverbal communication, values and norms, customs, ritual, and symbols. These elements play a significant role in shaping communication behavior and social expectation within a cultural group. So let's move to the next slide. Why CCU matters for English students? Why is this important for English department students? The answer is simple. Cross-cultural understanding helps us to, first, communicate effectively with people from different cultural backgrounds. Second, develop culturally appropriate teaching materials. Third, prepare for multicultural workplace. And last, avoid misunderstandings caused by cultural differences, especially in communication styles. With this foundation, we can now transition to the main focus of my presentation, which is the difference between directness and indirectness. So let's move to the next slide. Cultural differences between directness versus indirectness. To begin this section, let us first define the two terms. Direct communication refers to expressing ideas in a clear, straightforward, and explicit way. It is commonly practiced in Western cultures such as the United States and the United Kingdom. On the other hand, indirect communication is more subtle and polite. It relies on implication, context, tone, or nonverbal cues. This style is widely used in Eastern cultures, including Indonesia. Now let's move to the real-life example. We have two examples. First is classroom feedback. To illustrate this difference more concretely, consider a typical classroom situation. In Indonesia, a student might respond to a request or suggestion with praise like "I'll try" or "maybe later." While this sound natural, they often imply disagreement, or refusal. The goal is to avoid embarrassment or conflict. Meanwhile, a student from the US or the UK might say, "No, I disagree," or "I don't think this will work." This reflects their cultural expectation that honesty and clarity are more important than avoiding discomfort. Without cross-cultural understanding, these differences can easily lead to misinterpretation. Now for the second example is workplace meeting. Another example can be seen in workplace communication. In Indonesian workplace, employees may hint at an issue instead of stating it directly, as a way to preserve harmony. By contrast, American or British employees tend to express concern openly, believing that directness increases efficiency and prevent confusion. As a result, one may see the indirect speaker as unclear, while the direct speaker may be perceived as rude. Now let's move to the next slide, is critical analysis. These communication differences are not random. They come from deeper cultural values. Eastern societies are generally collectivist, emphasizing group harmony, face-saving, and respect for hierarchy, which encourage the indirectness. Western cultures, however, are more individualist, valuing personal expression, equality, and clarity, which leads to direct communication. Because of these contrasting values, misunderstanding often occur. A phrase like "I'll try" may sound like agreement to a Western listener, while the Indonesian speaker actually means no. Now let's move to the next slide. Supporting theory holds high context versus low context. At this point, to support the earlier explanation, I will connect this cultural difference to Edward Hall's theory. According to Hall, high-context cultures, including Indonesia, rely heavily on implied meaning, shared experience, and nonverbal cues. Messages are often indirect. In contrast, low-context cultures, like the US and the UK, rely on explicit verbal communication. Messages are direct, detailed, and clear. This theory helps us understand why Indonesians communicate indirectly while Westerners communicate directly. It also helps predict communication breakdowns and guide us toward better cross-cultural adaptation. Now we go to the last part is conclusion. To conclude the presentation, direct and indirectness are deeply connected to cultural values and communication norms. Western cultures tend to communicate clearly and explicitly, while Eastern cultures prefer subtlety and politeness. Hall's theory provides a useful framework to understand these differences. For my reflection, through completing this project, I realized that effective communication is not only about grammar or vocabulary but also about understanding cultural expectation. A simple expression can mean very different things in different cultures. This experience helped me appreciate the importance of adapting our communication style in multicultural interaction. So, thank you very much for watching this presentation. I hope it provides useful insight into cross-cultural communication, especially in understanding directness and indirectness.